All right, let's dive into a concept you're going to be hearing a lot more about: automation vulnerability. It's an idea that goes way beyond the scary headlines and gets right to the heart of how our jobs are, well, fundamentally changing.
We've all seen this one, right? It's that classic, nagging question that pops up everywhere. It's simple, it's direct, and honestly, it's designed to spark a little bit of anxiety. For years, it's been the go-to way we talk about the future of work. But here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. It's completely the wrong question. The real conversation, the one that actually helps us get ready for what's next, starts when we totally reframe the problem. This isn't about entire careers just vanishing overnight. No, it's about breaking a job down into all the little things you do all day.
So, to really get our heads around this shift in thinking, let's nail down exactly what we mean when we say a job has vulnerability.
Okay, so automation vulnerability isn't like a light switch that's either on or off. It's not you're safe or you're gone. It's much more of a spectrum. The big idea here is that any job, whether you're a barista or a brain surgeon, is just a bundle of different tasks. And each one of those tasks, making a latte, analyzing an MRI, writing a report, can be looked at for how easy it is to automate. So the key takeaway is we're moving from this big, blurry occupation-level view to a super-focused task-level view.
Right, so if it's all about individual tasks, how in the world do researchers actually measure that? How do they go from this cool concept to a hard number that tells us how at risk a job really is?
Well, it's this really elegant three-step process. First, they just decompose a job into its tiniest parts, every single action that makes up the role. Think about it: data entry, negotiating with a client, brainstorming a new idea. Then, for each one of those tiny tasks, they ask, is the tech today capable of doing this? That's the machine feasibility part. And finally, they just add up all those little scores to get an overall vulnerability risk for the entire job title.
And this precise, step-by-step approach is exactly what two Oxford researchers, Carl Frey and Michael Osborne, did way back in 2013. And let me tell you, their study wasn't just some boring academic paper. It completely reset the global conversation about jobs and tech.
And this is the number that made everybody sit up and pay attention: 47%. Their research suggested that nearly half of all jobs in the United States were at high risk of being automated. Suddenly, this wasn't just theory anymore. It was a massive wake-up call that people heard in boardrooms and government offices all over the world.
A giant number like that forces us to ask another question. What do we even mean by automation? Because it turns out it's not just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of different technologies, and they all do very different things.
Now, I really like how this slide simplifies things into two main tiers. On one side, you have robotic process automation, or RPA. You can think of these as the doers. They're amazing at repetitive, rule-based jobs that use clean, structured data. Think processing invoices or running payroll. But on the other side, you've got cognitive automation, what most of us just call AI. This is the thinking tier. These are the systems that can actually learn, adapt, and make sense of messy, unstructured data to do really complex stuff, like predictive analytics.
So, with all this powerful tech taking over both the doing and the thinking, you have to ask, what's left for us? What are the skills that machines, for now at least, just can't touch?
The source material uses this fantastic term for it: the human moat. It's like this protective barrier around us, built out of things that are just incredibly hard to write into code. We're talking about real creativity, the kind that comes up with brand new ideas, not just mashes up old ones. We're talking about the emotional intelligence needed to handle a tough negotiation, the wisdom to make a really difficult ethical call. These are the skills that give us our unique edge.
And this slide really shows where we're heading. It's not going to be a future of humans versus machines. It's going to be a hybrid model, a human-in-the-loop system. The machine does the heavy lifting. It sifts through 1 million data points in a second. But the human provides that final oversight, the context, the common sense, and, this is key, the accountability. It's all about augmentation, not replacement.
Okay, so with all this in mind, how do we actually get ready for this future? How do we proactively shift from feeling vulnerable to seeing this as a real opportunity?
Well, it starts by being honest about the central paradox of automation. The source calls it the dual yield. On one hand, the promise is just huge. We're talking about incredible gains in efficiency and productivity. But on the other hand, the peril is just as real: serious job displacement and major socioeconomic disruption. The big challenge for all of us is to get as much of that promise as we can while doing everything we can to manage the peril.
So our response really comes down to two major strategies. First, upskilling. But this isn't just about learning to code. It's about developing metacognitive skills. Basically, learning how to learn, how to ask an AI smarter questions, and how to look at its answers with a critical eye. Second, it means we have to actively redesign jobs. We need to intentionally restructure roles so they're less about the routine tasks machines are good at and more about the things only we can do: high-level strategy, creativity, and real human connection.
And that right there is the big aha moment. When you really step back, you see that automation vulnerability isn't a measure of how powerful our technology is. It's actually a mirror, and it's reflecting how fragile static skills are in a fast-changing world. So it's not some threat we should be scared of, it's a massive call for our own intellectual evolution. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. The ultimate test here isn't going to be about what machines are capable of. It's going to be a test of our own imagination, our ability to redefine our purpose, to create new kinds of value, and to figure out our place in a world that we are building side by side with these incredibly powerful creations.